Thank you for tuning in to Entertain the Geeky, your source for nerd news.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Jason back at you with more nerd news. So, I am joined on this news journey today by Rodger Wade.
Yo! What's up, Jason?
I'm nothing, man. I'm good. It's been a while since we've done a news show.
It has been.
I've kind of put up some things that, are less news and, they're kind of still news, but more news about something specific, right? Like I've got a review of Kingdom Hearts 3 that I'm putting up later today that me and Mike did. So it's still news, but it's a very specific
and honestly,
type of news.
Honestly, that's fine. Let me ask you a question, though, because this is news. I just found this out. Would you spend $1,200 for a life-size Harley Quinn statue?
Depends.
What if I told you it was a life-size Harley Quinn statue from the Arkham City?
No.
Okay, because that's what she looks like.
Yeah, no, I've seen that. That's not new.
It's not?
No.
Oh. I don't know if I'd spend $1,200 on.
Dave Wallace did.
Did he buy one?
Yeah.
Why? He put it in the store though.
No, he put the Batman one in the store, but we the managers had a whole huge discussion about how that version of Harley Quinn is a little too sexualized, with her like thong hanging out and the real low cut with her breasts all hanging out, like that it was just too sexual to put in a family store.
So what did he do with it?
I think he sold it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Or sent it back for credit or something. I don't know.
I mean, that's
the Batman one went up in the St. Charles store, and as far as I know, it still stands there.
Like, I'm okay with that. I like putting it in a store. I get. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't think I'd buy that just to have in a collection. Right?
Yeah,
like to have as part of my stuff.
Yeah, no.
But so we got some new stuff to talk about. Obviously, I'm gonna start right away with the most recent Avengers Endgame trailer. I gotta give credit to the Russos. Like, I've actually gone back and watched trailers for the movies they've done specifically. So Captain America, Winter Soldier, Cap Civil War, Infinity War, and now Endgame. And one of the things I will say that they do a very good job of is giving away as little as possible while still enticing you.
Giving you everything away, but not really.
But they don't give anything away. That's one of the things I've noticed about their trailers. If you go back and you look at some of these trailers, they're actually very good at hiding the major plot points of their story by keeping the images random, but full enough to keep you still enticed, right? So when we look at the two trailers we've seen for Endgame, really, I mean, there's not a lot to gather from them. There's wild speculation on the internet everywhere from different people who think this means this and this means this, and who's missing from this shot that should be here, or who's in this shot that probably shouldn't be here. And it's easy to do those kind of things because they are, they have been known to hide things in trailers before, like the shot in Civil War that doesn't have Spider-Man in it.
Yeah. The
shot still remains the same. They just moved Vision to the flying position above, and he's replaced in the lineup by Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But what I like about it is, again, it really gives nothing away. I'm still very curious about what the film will be.
Let me ask you that Spider-Man thing, though. Was that because they got the rights to Spider-Man after they filmed that scene and they just had to add him, or?
No, that was from the first trailer. They kept the Spider-Man reveal until the second trailer because, they were still negotiating with Sony about whether or not they could put him in the movie to begin with. But they went ahead with the idea that they could, and that's how they wrote the movie. So, really, the movie probably would have had to undergo some reshoots if that didn't pan out right for them. Because, again, they went ahead with the idea, we're putting Spider-Man in this movie. They cast him and all that. But we haven't really got permission yet, but we're thinking we're going to. Right?
Well, and here's an interesting thing for you. Apparently, like I'm reading this right now, the Avenger Endgame trailers won't show any footage outside the first 15, 20 minutes of the film.
Well, that's not true because, we see Tony and Nebula in the lineup at the end of this most recent trailer in those quantum suits. So the reality is the first 15, 20 minutes of the movie, they're in space.
Right. Unless it is that fast of a get back. Maybe them being in space isn't that big of a deal.
No, I think that's a big deal, right? And I also think to myself that them getting home, because they're both technologically knowledgeable, right? Them getting home is going to be a big part of the movie. How they work together to get home, and they don't know each other. I mean, they literally have never met before this moment.
Well, we'll find out in, 3 weeks?
Yeah, we're very close at this point.
3 weeks countdown?
By the time this episode goes up, it'll probably be more like 2 weeks. But because I've got stuff to put up ahead of this.
Well, and we're gonna, at least on Entertainment Geeky, we're gonna have a big thing. I'm pretty sure you will on Nerd News about Endgame.
Oh, reviewing the movie? Yes, absolutely.
Maybe we should just do a.
Well, Joe is actually the guy I usually go to for movie reviews, and if you've listened to the show, you know that. And he's actually going to be in town for Endgame, so he's going to stick around to do that. At least that's what I think the plan is.
Do it right afterwards, just bring the mic and the computer and set it up in the lobby.
I don't think they're going to let us do that.
Fuck that. Fuck them. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So I,
that's my one for PG-13 rating.
Right. So obviously, the new trailer, it doesn't give too much away, but it does have some intriguing shots. The big one being seeing them in the quantum suits.
Yeah.
Which those images of them got leaked so long ago, and there was a lot of doubt whether or not they were actually real or someone had faked them.
Which is all possible.
Right. But, it turns out it was actually real. They will be in the quantum suits that are very similar to Hank Pym's from, Ant-Man and the Wasp when he dives into the quantum realm to retrieve Janet. So what that means for the story is, in all reality, I think that probably happens at the end of the first act, right?
20 minutes.
20 minutes is not, first of all, the movie's 3 hours long, so the acts are 1 hour.
They don't have to be.
They don't have to be. They probably will be, because they're spending 3 hours telling this story.
Which we discussed is not the longest we've sat in a movie theater for a movie.
Not, for a Marvel movie it will be, but yes, not for a movie in general, right? Lord of the Rings takes that cake.
Yeah, that's 3 hours.
Honestly, Titanic. I saw Titanic in movie theaters.
I still have never seen Titanic.
You're ridiculous.
I'm all right.
It's a good movie.
Okay.
Not to mention the fact that most of the sinking of the boat was done practically, which makes it beautiful to see.
Okay.
With stuntman and literally lifting up a big giant half of a boat to a vertical position.
Well, I mean, that's, yeah, because most of the CGI was spent on the ship in the ocean.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I mean,
because they filmed most of the shots in big pools on back lots. Yeah. Most of the shots that involve people in water were filmed on the back lot.
Which is the way it should be.
With part of a ship. It's a good movie, though.
Any speculation on Endgame that you want to get into, or do you want to hold off on that?
I tend not to speculate because one of the things I actually find really funny about internet speculation about we know what's going to happen is after the film releases, you see a slew of videos and people talking about it, and I love talking about it. I'm probably going to do it after Endgame. Is how wrong everybody was.
Well, I will say we still have that list that we did 2 years ago about who will live and who will die.
It's true. It's true.
And we still are holding out because I don't care that it's got a different name. This is Infinity War Part 2.
I think what you're going to find is it's a completely different movie. Yes, it follows the path of the previous film, but most of their films follow the path of some previous film.
It's a sequel.
All of them are sequels. Right. That's the reality, right? Even though Captain America is still Captain America, it's still a sequel to Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But this is a sequel because...
But the thing they were talking about when they switched from it being Infinity War Part 1 and 2 to Infinity War and ? Was this idea that what that implies is that both movies are one single movie that you have to watch in 2 parts. But they weren't doing that. They wanted to make their own separate movies that connect to each other, just like everything else in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has always done. Guardians of the Galaxy can connect to an Avengers movie, but not because it preludes that movie.
But this connects on a much more deep-rooted way.
Of course. This is the largest they've ever used that connective tissue in this way. But it doesn't change the fact that I feel like Endgame is going to be tonally a very different movie than the one we just watched, which doesn't make it Infinity War Part 2. It makes it Endgame. Do you see what I'm saying? How do you define whether or not this is the same movie following that story or a different movie entirely? It's tone. It comes down to tone.
No, because tone between...
And how you tell your story.
Tone between certain... Like Kill Bill 1 and Kill Bill 2, the tone is completely different in those 2 movies, yet you would consider Kill Bill 2 to be a sequel. And at the same time, Quentin Tarantino wanted to show those movies in one lump sum, much like Avengers Infinity War and Infinity War Part 2. You can change tone and still be a sequel.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. We can then say that about every Marvel movie up to this point. It's not exclusive to Avengers.
This one is
every Marvel movie has changed the tone, but still followed the story.
But unlike Avengers and Avengers: Age of Ultron, this is like Age of Ultron has more to do with Age of Ultron and Avengers 2.5 Civil War is more of a sequel than Avengers to Avengers Age of Ultron.
No, I agree with that.
And to me, this one is like it's a direct sequel. Like it's a different movie.
But when you look at like Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron, just because you brought those two up, right? The sequel to Avengers and the prequel to Age of Ultron is Captain America: Winter Soldier,
right?
Where the Hydra thing becomes a real part of the story,
right? And then they use that as
the prologue for Avengers: Age of Ultron. Yes. So every movie is constantly building.
Except this isn't the prologue. Like this entire movie is all about fixing what happened in the previous movie.
You're right, but I feel like the ideas that are going to come into play in this film, because these people have been broken by something so terrible, are going to be completely different and make these characters, in essence, different.
Well, yeah, they're going to be different characters. And it's going to be interesting to see how these characters handle doing the same things Thanos had to do to get the stones.
Yeah.
Like that's
the Soul Stone is one that I will speculate on a little bit, because someone has to die in order for that stone to exist. A soul must be separated from its physical form in order for the Soul Stone to exist. So someone's got to go.
Yeah.
And who is that someone? Well, probably Tony, in my opinion. Right? Because I feel like Cap's death will be reserved for Thanos and the fight against them, which means that Tony won't get to be a part of that final battle.
Yeah.
When you think about it realistically, somebody's got to go in order for that stone to be claimed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, who goes?
Well,
who even has the loved ones to sacrifice to claim that stone?
And we will talk, like we can talk more about that, but that's, like we talked the other night, that's going to be something that, since it's a 3-act movie, and we're assuming that each act is an hour long, this sacrifice is Act 2. Is going to be the end of Act 2.
The finale of Act 2.
Meaning you're going to be sitting in the theater for an hour with that death
hanging over you.
Not 20 minutes like most of the time, where you can walk out of the theater and be like, oh, like when Wash died in Firefly, like, oh, Wash died, that's so sad, but the movie wrapped up.
Well, Infinity War. Everyone died and it was over.
Right. But this one, like, you were going to be stuck with watching these characters go on, knowing that in your head that whoever it is just died.
Right. And I think when you talk about that, like I said, what it comes down to is who has the loved ones to sacrifice. Right? Cap has no one left. Right? It would have been Peggy. But Cap doesn't have Peggy. Peggy's dead. Hawkeye, I don't care what anybody says. The face we see Hawkeye, the place we see Hawkeye in that first trailer is the face of a man who's lost his whole family to dust. They've all been dusted.
It could be the Hulk.
Sacrificing who?
No, like Black Widow sacrifices the Hulk.
I think the Hulk gets his rematch against Thanos.
Now, do they have to go? Well, yeah.
Also, because Mark Ruffalo said that. He's like, look, I can say that we get a rematch.
But also, are you going to see, like, if the sacrifice goes willingly, does that count?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the person who claims the stone has to sacrifice what they love the most. The thing that means the most to them. The person or whatever.
Okay.
Because again, the stone, what we've preluded with Gamora inside the stone, when he sees her at the end, and she's a little girl, and she asks him what it cost, and he tells her everything. Gamora's soul is the stone.
Right.
So the person who claims it in a past timeline, the soul has to be, in fact, that's probably a way to get Gamora back. Right? Because if the stone's created in a timeline before she sacrificed herself, well, then that sacrifice was never necessary.
Right. I don't... Then who, like, because in the...
now it comes down to Tony.
We're going down to the whole speculation thing, and I want to stay away from that.
It comes down to, for me, there's only two people it comes down to. It comes down to Tony and Pepper.
Yeah, but who claims the stone?
Tony.
But Tony's dead.
Or Pepper.
See, I don't see Pepper claiming the stone.
Someone's got to claim the stone.
I can see Pepper dying.
I can see Pepper dying, too.
I can see Tony going to sacrifice himself, and Pepper saying no.
No, and she takes it away from him.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, no, I can see that.
Yeah. But again, that's speculation, and we're gonna.
I'm gonna cry. So
we're gonna reserve that until
I'm gonna cry like a baby.
The movie, but so going on into comic news, I actually wanted to touch on something a couple of things that are very interesting to me right now. You've been reading comics again. You've been reading Daredevil.
Yeah.
And on the Marvel side, aside from I think the X-Men, Daredevil is one of the most popular books right now.
Thank you, Netflix.
It's being written very well. And Netflix.
Yeah. Well, we're only 3 issues in to the new series.
Sure.
Like, we're only 3 issues in, so it's...
Isn't the guy who's writing it now the same guy who's writing it before?
No, it's a different guy.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was hoping for, but kind of found out it's a different guy. I forget the name, but they brought the guy on to write that 6-issue miniseries of Matt overcoming the fact that he got hit by a truck.
Right.
Which was an amazing story of him confronting fear. Like, actual fear, and fear saying, no, you think you're the man without fear. I've always been with you.
Right.
And here's what you really have been afraid of.
Right.
And that was just an awesome arc, and how fear is trying to keep Matt away from the devil.
Well, yeah, and the man without fear has always been his thing, right? Like,
right, exactly.
Daredevil fears nothing.
Right, and there's an awesome scene in an issue.
So exploring the nature of fear, I think, that's a good idea for him.
And there's a scene in issue 4 where Kingpin shows up.
Okay.
To give his blessings or whatever, threatening Matt Murdock in the hospital. And you see Matt pretending to be asleep and sweat starting to pull because he's afraid of what Kingpin can do to him now.
Sure.
But he's also hoping that Kingpin kills him.
Sure.
It's this weird sort of, and it's just an amazing run. And now we're dealing with the aftermath of that. Daredevil's back to being Daredevil. He's learning how to be Daredevil again, and he might have killed a guy.
Okay.
And that's what the story arc is.
All right.
And it's good. Read it.
Well, yeah, the Marvel stuff, I'm not working at a comic shop anymore. I have to be a little more selective because I don't have as much money as I used to when I had a nice discount to take advantage of. But I've been reading, some of the things they've been doing, mostly X-Men and Avengers. And honestly, I like the Avengers and the Thor story that Jason Aaron, because Jason Aaron's writing both Avengers and Thor right now. And Jason Aaron's been writing Thor since God of Thunder, right? Which set off the whole Thor losing worthiness to wield the hammer, and Jane picking up the hammer and being Thor for a while. And then,
did we ever? I hate to interrupt you. Did we ever find out what was said to Thor in Fear itself when he dropped the hammer?
Yeah, they did that during Unworthy Thor. I don't remember what it was something that didn't live up to the hype.
Really?
Yeah, I remember feeling very disappointed that was what actually got said to him that made him unworthy.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think that happened during the Unworthy Thor miniseries.
Because I was so excited to figure out what was said.
Yeah.
All right.
But again, so Jason Aaron, I think we're coming to the end of his arc for Thor, right? Because he's writing Thor again. He's also writing Avengers, which are both leading up to this big thing that's coming this summer called War of the Realms. In fact, I think it starts in a few weeks here, which is going to be an Avengers-Thor crossover thing. And they've done these kinds of things before. I mean, the idea of Siege was Asgard's floating over Ohio or something. And,
right.
What are we going to do about this? How do we respond to this threat?
Is it a threat? It's Asgard.
That's but Norman Osborn was in charge at the time.
Okay, that is a threat.
Yeah. Siege was the end of Osborn's arc as head of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Hide your girlfriends, because Norman Osborn in the time he has a reputation of killing.
So that's not a new concept, but I think giving him the writing spot on Avengers has allowed him to expand on that a little bit and have this affect more than just the Thor story that he's been in charge of for so long. So I'm excited to get to the end of that arc, and I really have been enjoying his Thor book, and he's never been a bad writer for Thor.
Yeah.
Like going from God of Thunder into Thor, which was Jane's first, story as Thor, and then going back into Thor God of Thunder, which it was Jane now leading that story, and then having Jane not Thor anymore, and now we're back to Thor.
Is Jane dead now?
Yes.
Because she had cancer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She went to Valhalla, though.
Hey, that's the one thing in comic books that we still can't cure is cancer.
Yeah.
Like it seems to be when a character dies from cancer, they're just dead.
Yeah, she went to Valhalla, though. There was actually a really cool one-shot they did in the aftermath of her book called Thor at the Gates of Valhalla.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was a beautiful little send-off for Jane,
Nice.
Not only as a character, but also as the God of Thunder, who she had been for so long. Well, not long, but she had been for a good amount of time at that point, and been a part of an Avengers team, and got to actually experience being Thor. It was a good little send-off one-shot.
Nice.
Yeah. But anyway, on the DC side of things, what's really been impressing me, and I know you're not, a DC reader, or at least not most of the time,
No.
I guess.
No, honestly, for me to pick up comics, the reason I read Daredevil is I'm not a big fan. I'm really not a huge superhero comic fan.
Right.
Which is why I say I read Daredevil. It's because Daredevil is more than a superhero comic to me. Like when I read Hawkeye, because the comic was literally Hawkeye being Hawkeye away from the Avengers of I'm a normal guy.
He was Clint.
Yeah, and that was awesome. Yeah. So for me, that's what I like to read.
Right.
But I will read DC every once in a while. I like Batman. I like the characters.
Well, so one of the things that's happening currently that started back when they did the Dark Knight's Metal crossover, which I've talked about on the show before. I even did a couple of articles for the website about that because I was very excited about Dark Knight's Metal.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were.
Well, because it was kind of the conclusion of Snyder's arc that he started with New 52 Batman, right? Metal was kind of the natural conclusion of that story. And it introduced us to a character called the Batman Who Laughs, who, if you're unfamiliar, is a version of Bruce Wayne that's been Jokerized, basically. So he was Batman. Joker, in this universe, pushed him over the edge, and he snapped the Joker's neck. And in that moment, a toxin was released when the Joker's heart stopped that infected Batman with Joker's DNA, essentially.
You know,
it paled his skin. It forced his mouth into a smile. I mean, it turned him into the Joker.
Did they show how like why he killed the Joker, or did they just like say he killed the Joker?
No, they showed it. Yeah,
because I was wondering if maybe this is what would have happened if the Killing Joke kept going.
Right.
And that's kind of what I was thinking.
Right.
Was like,
no. This was a moment. So he had Batman at his mercy, had him chained up. Batman couldn't do anything to stop him, and he had whole families lined up, like huge line of families and their little children going around the block, held at gunpoint by his henchmen, and he was forcing them to recreate the scenario that created Batman. So the next family would come up with their child, and he would kill the parents and let the child live. And then he would do it again, and then he would do it again, and then he would do it again. And he was creating, and Batman's screaming and trying to break the chains, and and then when he finally does, I mean, that was too much, and it pushed Batman over the edge.
God,
it was brutal.
I'm very upset I wasted my one earlier because that's messed up.
Yeah, it's brutal. So it led to the birth of this character that they call the Batman Who Laughs, and he's, like I said, he's still Batman. He's got all of the willpower, the knowledge, the fighting ability, the planning that Batman's always had. That's always made him one of our favorite characters, but with the moral compass of the Joker. So imagine that. I mean, imagine putting those two concepts together, this brilliant mind and this psychopath. And for the first time ever in this miniseries, because they've introduced him in Metal, everything kind of fell apart, and the heroes won the day, but the Batman Who Laughs escaped, right, to go on and hide in this universe and plan a comeback. And here we are at this miniseries just entitled The Batman Who Laughs.
So is he in Prime now?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's in the regular DC universe. In fact, in the Scott Snyder's Justice League story that he's been doing, Lex Luthor's had him tied up in the basement, keeping him close by, because he's a genius, right? I mean, this is Batman without the moral problems that Batman has, right? Unchained from a morality that carries Batman as a character. So the book is just phenomenal. The miniseries is just phenomenal because, like I said, this is a Batman for the first time who can say confidently, Batman always wins, right? Because this is a Batman who right away shows in this miniseries he's more than a match for Bruce, our Bruce, the prime Bruce. Like, Bruce starts out the story, he lost. He lost, he got infected, and now he's turning into the Joker. That's how the story starts.
Interesting.
Now, throughout the story, he's starting to realize that embracing that might be the only way to win. Whether that happens or not, I'm going to leave ambiguous because I want you to read the miniseries. You should. It's fantastic. But this concept brings in the idea that maybe the only way to beat someone like this is to become him. Because Bruce can't look at things from this man's perspective.
Well, that's something the Joker's always been.
Right, but this man also is Bruce. Right? This is a dark mirror of Bruce Wayne.
Right.
Because when they introduce him, one of the first things he does is kills Batgirl and Nightwing and Robin and Red Hood. Because they're the ones who will see this happening, and they're the ones that will stop him. And because the Joker's creeping in, he murders them. I mean, he literally blows them all away with Uzis in the Batcave. Gathers them all for a meeting and then just kills them all. Because, again, they're the closest people to him, and he knows they'll see this coming. And because the Joker's already infected his mind, the Joker is defending itself inside of Bruce's brain.
That's creepy.
So we have this miniseries where we've introduced another dark Batman called the Grim Knight, who they were going to introduce during Metal. Actually, Snyder is writing the miniseries and has introduced us to the Grim Knight. But he was like, this is an idea we had back then, but we didn't introduce him because we felt like the Batman / Punisher took it to an extreme that we really didn't want it to be at yet. the Batman Who Laughs had to be our most extreme character at that point, because you had a Green Lantern type Batman, you had a Aquaman type Batman, you had a Cyborg type Batman, you had all of these different Batman. And it was like the killer, this just stone cold killer, was a character that would have taken too much focus away from the Batman Who Laughs, who had to be the psycho leader of this gang of Bruces. So they're introducing him now as the sidekick to the Batman Who Laughs. And they put out a one-shot just entitled The Grim Knight. And just like the one-shots they did during Metal, this kind of tells a backstory for him. And one of the things that just as a Batman fan blew me away was they took the moment from year one where Bruce intimidates the mob bosses at their dinner and expanded it. I mean, the dialogue is exactly the same. Everything unfolds in the exact same way. The lights get cut. The spotlight hits him and he starts talking. I mean, it all happens exactly the same way, almost panel for panel to year one. With the exception of the end, none of you are safe. He burns them all alive.
That's awesome.
This is a Bruce who, on the night his parents were murdered, the murderer dropped the pistol and Bruce picked it up and shot him dead for killing his parents.
I mean, I think we all,
Yeah.
So
this was an interesting concept because, again, it takes those classic moments and twists them, and we see how the path differs, but can still be so closely linked to what Bruce's path is. What we see is that there are a few critical moments along Bruce's timeline where if one thing is changed, everything changes. Just one little thing that changes. Like I said, him picking up the gun and being a 10-year-old and not understanding the ramifications, what this will do to his psyche, shoots the man who just killed his parents. And where that zags affects the entirety of how this man becomes a hero. He still becomes that hero, but the way he becomes it is much different.
He becomes a hero.
Right.
He doesn't become that hero.
Right. He becomes a version of Batman.
Right, because Batman has a rule.
It's true. But again,
Batman didn't used to have that rule.
If we twist a few little things, that rule becomes null and void. Right? The Green Lantern one I was telling you about earlier, he gets the ring, and his willpower is so strong, he overrides the ring's non-killing protocol and uses it to murder Joe Chill. Right? Batman becomes Green Lantern when he's 10.
That's pretty cool.
And he's such a strong-willed person, even at 10, that he's able to override the ring's safety protocols. And essentially unleashes a darkness that the Green Lantern rings we didn't know they were capable of.
It's time to stab him with a yellow pencil.
Yeah. Well, in that timeline, sure. Yellow was still a weakness for the Green Lanterns back then.
Got one right here.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So the Batman Who Laughs from DC, obviously Daredevil,
Firefly,
Marvel. The Firefly, I haven't read the series. It's sitting in my pull. I haven't bought it yet.
It's good.
But there's a lot of things I'm behind on right now. Like I'm behind on the Avengers stuff that Jason Aaron's been doing. I've kept up with the Thor stuff, but I'm behind like 3 issues on Jason Aaron's Avengers, setting up War of the Realms. But so I very much highly recommend reading the Batman Who Laughs. It doesn't even expect you to understand the story that precluded it. It just expects you to understand this is a man who is Bruce Wayne and the Joker combined. That's all you really need to know.
You kind of get that from the cover.
Right.
I mean, you get I picked up the cover.
You look at the cover and you think, this is Joker, right?
Right.
But you have to remember, too, it's also Bruce.
But he's wearing a Batman cowl.
Right.
So, I mean,
it's kind of a dark Batman cowl with spikes
I
and
see
stuff.
It, and I go, that's Batman.
I always thought he looked like Judge Death from the Judge Dredd series.
That's my first thought, but I wasn't going to go that far.
Well, and Judge Death was creepy. Like, he was a scary character.
Oh, man.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with the Dark Judges,
you need to be.
They're amazing. Like Judge Dredd is not on the surface, not really that revolutionary. But when they introduced the 4 judges that fell to darkness, the Dark Judges, they are fantastic. It gets very sci-fi and also kind of spiritual, right?
Yeah, and it works. Like you can actually now AD 2000 has bundled these things, as in. You can now buy them year by year from all the AD 2000 strips, as in here's the first year of Judge Dredd. So you can actually read them that way and do that.
Well, and Judge Death had the ability to like go into other people and infect them with his ideas.
He was such a bad villain.
He was good.
Like Judge Dredd is. I wish we would have gotten more of those movies.
Well, so Dredd introduced the 4 judges that would ultimately become the Dark Judges.
Yes.
but it didn't actually make them the Dark Judges.
Well, it would. I think they would
sequel, right? We could sequel it, yeah.
Yeah, sequel.
But introduce them because they weren't always darkness.
No,
they were just
judges.
like Judge Dredd. Yeah,
and like Judge Dredd. The Dredd was made.
They were corrupt, but they were just Judge Dredd.
And it was made on such a shoestring budget that they really couldn't do. That's why they're like Die Hard. Let's just make Die Hard. Right. And they did, and it was fantastic. Like that Dredd movie was really good. If you haven't seen it,
it was okay. It was, in all reality, the thing I liked about it the most that really is such a goofy nitpick is he keeps his helmet on the whole movie.
No, that's important.
Like
that's important.
Do you know how long Judge Dredd went as a comic before we ever knew what Judge Dredd looked like?
We still don't know what Judge
No, we did.
Like. Nah.
He's been unmasked in the comics.
No.
Yeah, yes.
No. That was not the real Judge Dredd.
What are you talking about?
It was a clone.
No, he got unmasked in front of the PSYOP girl. Mm-mm. She's the only one who knows what he looks like.
We as readers don't know.
No, we as readers do know. He saw her. She saw him. But in all reality, it's a goofy nitpick, right? But Sylvester Stallone was not wearing the helmet for the whole movie. Like, he wore the helmet in the opening scene, I think, and then we didn't see him in the helmet the rest of the movie.
No, yeah.
Even when he's riding the motorcycle, where the helmet makes sense, he wasn't wearing the helmet.
Yeah, no, he's bad.
But the reality is, it's such a goofy nitpick, but it's something that is important, right, for this character and how he appears to the people that he's the judge of, right? The judges are the cops. He appears intimidating with the helmet on.
Yes.
You humanize him, he's not as intimidating.
No, he's not. And
with the helmet on, he's a force of nature.
Carl Urban was like the best casting choice for that. Like, he just did such a good job.
It requires, when you have someone who's partially covered, their face is partially covered, you really need someone who can emote with just the features that you can see, right? So like when Tom Hardy did Maine, that guy does so much with his eyes in that movie because you can't see anything but his eyes. And you can actually pick up his emotional state because his voice doesn't really give off any emotion.
No, because his voice is
right, that's kind of the point, right? But when you see his eyes, you can really understand this man's emotional state, whether he's sad or whether he's angry or determined. He did a lot with his eyes, and I think Carl Urban did a lot with just his mouth and his chin, right? And that's important, right? I have to be able to pick up your emotional state by what I can see that humanizes you just a little bit, right? But I'm still intimidated by the rest.
One day we should actually sit there and talk about Dredd, the movie, like get in depth, because there's so much I want to talk to you about right now about like why Hershey passed. Like there's so much to go on in that movie.
Well, also, like I said, when you see those four judges, unless you're a Judge Dredd fan, you might not even have picked up on that these are the Dark Judges before, because their names are all on their badges, right? Dredd is written right on his... So when you see these guys' names, if you know Judge Dredd lore, your mind immediately goes to, these are the Dark Judges.
And those four showed up. Yeah. Did some dark stuff.
As a group. The group corrupt these four people. Yes. They show up in the movie. Yeah. So
yes,
I agree. So I want to move on, just touch real quickly on it before we finish up here, because I have a review of Kingdom Hearts 3 going up a little later, and Kingdom Hearts 3 kind of overshadowed something that I really didn't get a chance to talk about in the news or even review in the remake of Resident Evil 2.
Yeah.
It came out literally a week. I mean, when I say a week, it wasn't even a full week. It was like 5 days before Kingdom Hearts 3 dropped. And don't get me wrong, I got through all the campaign stuff in Resident Evil 2 before Kingdom Hearts 3 dropped.
Did you?
Yes. So it's only you play through with both characters,
right?
And then you play the B story for both characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you unlock one B story, the other one's automatically unlocked.
Oh, okay.
Right. Once you finish one A story, the other A story is automatically unlocked, right? Obviously. So it wasn't like the old game where you had to load saves and stuff. It's just a menu. Like you play A scenario Leon, A scenario Claire, A scenario or B scenario Leon, B scenario Claire. Right? They're listed in
order,
a menu.
Okay.
Right? So that you can just select which one you want to do. Whereas before you had to do the A scenario before the B scenario was available.
Yes.
Right? So yes, I got through both A scenarios with both characters and B scenarios with both characters before Kingdom Hearts 3 dropped. But what that meant is I was rushing, right? Like I was pushing. I wasn't really enjoying what the game was. So then going back to it after Kingdom Hearts 3 dropped, I really got to feel my way through it a little more, understand Mr. X's tactics a little more to better avoid him and get puzzles done, right? Because Mr. X, when you first are playing the game, especially when you're playing the game in a hurry like I was before Kingdom Hearts 3, because I was like, I got to finish this.
You got something coming out.
Because there's something coming out that I really am going to take all my attention and focus it on. So one of the things that you don't realize when you're rushing through is how Mr. X hunts you. But when you start to slow down and take your time and look at what is attracting him versus what is not, you really get a better feel for how to avoid him. The one big thing is running. If you're running, he can hear you. If you shoot a gun, he can hear you, right? Using a knife doesn't do it. Walking doesn't do it. So if you just slow down how you play the game a little bit and be less reckless with your ammo, you actually can avoid Mr. X almost entirely. There are key scripted moments where, like, no, he's here.
Right.
When he first pushes the helicopter aside, it's like, oh shit.
What was your thoughts? Was it worth it?
Yes, the remake is fantastic. It's not only a beautiful remake that kind of still pays homage to the classic, but the engine that the Resident Evil engine they created when they made Resident Evil 7 is what they used for this game. And they thought about making it a first-person game. They really had a long discussion about using the same style they did for 7 and just doing a first-person version of this story. But ultimately they decided against it because this story worked well with the Resident Evil 4 controls, and you really want to see Claire and Leon. These are faces that you want to see.
And now they're talking about possibly doing a remake of Resident Evil 3.
But outsourcing it to another studio, actually.
Okay.
That's the rumor at this point, is that we are going to get a remake of Resident Evil 3, but the Capcom has outsourced it because they're focusing on Resident Evil 8.
Which means it'd be much like the remake of Resident Evil.
But they're still using the RE engine.
Okay.
The engine that Capcom has created for their Resident Evil games is still going to be used by that third-party developer. The third-party developer is just going to be developing the mechanics of what this game is now versus what it was then.
Okay.
The engine will still be the same, like Unreal, right?
You're right, so I'm going to get better Resident Evil games.
Yes.
Because you can't go back and play the first 3.
You can.
Yeah, it's not. You can't.
The remake they made for GameCube has actually been made available to PlayStation owners as well in a remastered version.
It's much like going back and trying to play Metal Gear Solid 1 now, the original Metal Gear Solid 1.
Yeah, I do Twin Snakes, so I'm going to replay 1.
Exactly.
Twin Snakes is like Metal Gear Solid 1 story with the controls of Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yes, which is better.
It's far
and better graphics, because
it is.
Like, PlayStation graphics, they're kind of hard to play nowadays.
It is quite dated, which is why we're seeing things like Crash getting remastered, Spyro. I wouldn't be surprised if we get like Jak and Daxter remasters. And what is it? Sly Raccoon, the Thievius
I forgot about Sly Raccoon.
He had a whole trilogy.
Yeah. I just downloaded? Cuphead.
It's one of the most challenging games ever.
I have never wanted to break my controller so much.
It's a beautiful side-scrolling experience.
It
really is.
Artwork is amazing. The graphic, the controls are.
They're releasing it for Switch, and I think I might pick it up for Switch.
You should, because it's Nintendo hard.
Yeah.
It's been a minute since I played a Nintendo hard game. All the complaining I've done about video games in the past, this game shows me why I shouldn't have been complaining.
Yeah. And so, for seeing these kinds of things get remastered and remade, for me, one of the ones I really would like to see remastered, and I'm talking about the original, is Banjo-Kazooie. I would play the shit out of Banjo-Kazooie again.
Didn't they? No, they just released it as a collection.
They released
part of the rare replay, but it wasn't a replay.
They released Banjo-Tooie, which was not really a good sequel. And then they released, a third-party company released a game called Yooka-Laylee that was supposed to be kind of a Banjo-Kazooie modern-day platformer, and it was not good.
You know what game I'd like to see them remake? Snake, Rattle, and Roll.
I don't even know what that is.
It's like one of Rare's first Nintendo games I ever played, and you start out as a little snake, and you got to roll around this isometric because it's early 90s, late 80s isometric 3D view, and you've got to collect these little balls and make your snake grow longer so you can take more hits. And how you get to the next stage is by weighing enough on these scales to go through.
So you're talking about there's a game that I just actually tried for the first time because my wife suggested because there was a free demo of it is Katamari Damacy, and
sort of
Katamari Damacy is an isometric overhead 3D view, and you have to roll this little ball around
and make it bigger. But there's bad guys.
But there's stuff that will fuck it up and knock pieces off of it, right? Yeah.
No, there's bad guys that will kill you dead. And if you jump on the water, they get to the special thing that you hear da 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 da, and the shark will eat you.
Yeah.
It was such a cute little game. Me and my brother used to play all the time when we were kids.
I actually was very frustrated by Katamari Damacy, and I understand that it probably has a huge fan base of people that enjoy it. I cannot play.
They did a sequel.
I cannot play games like that. I can't. It doesn't make any sense to me. I can't wrap my head around why I'm playing the game.
Yeah, Snake, Rattle, Roll came out at the same time Battletoads came out. Which we're getting a new Battletoads game.
They already did that.
When did it come out?
Last year?
No, I saw the trailer. I didn't know we got a new game last year.
No, like they released that already.
Did they?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't.
I don't have an Xbox. I know it was an Xbox exclusive, so I don't know, but I'm pretty sure.
No, it's not. Trust me, it's not out yet.
Okay. He's searching because he wants to know for sure.
Release date to be announced 2019.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I thought that happened already.
No, not yet.
Must be thinking of something else.
Yeah, no, I'm excited.
In all reality, they're never going to be able to recreate what made Battletoads so challenging back then.
That stupid jet level.
No, I mean everything about that game was challenging. I mean the jet level was a particular hard
that was
challenge.
level 2,
but everything about that game was challenging.
Level 1 was easy.
Okay, level one's the intro stage.
Yeah, level 1 was easy.
Level 1's introducing you to how this game works.
If you ever made it past level 2, then you probably
it got harder.
I don't know. You know why? Because I never made it past that stupid woo stage.
I beat the game.
Yeah, well,
doing it co-op is where most people.
Well, and that's how we always
is where most people fall is because doing it by yourself, all you have to worry about is one toad. Right. I'm just worried about one toad. It's a lot easier to do it by yourself than it is to do it co-op, where it's like, look, you screwed that up. Do you see what you did there? Or I screwed that up. Do you see what I did there?
No, I didn't. Because yeah.
But no, I mean, I like this idea of remastering and remaking things, but I like the idea more because, not because I'm nostalgic for these old games, but more because I like to see how these games can be applied to today's gamers.
How they could have been. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, when you look at a remake of Resident Evil 2, is it Resident Evil 2?
No.
Not really.
No, it's
a brand new game with a story that follows similarly to the old one. It's not even the same story. I mean, there's things about it that are different.
And they wanted it to be that way for the old school fans.
Right.
To have something new.
So it's interesting to see how these old game concepts can be applied to modern day games. And I think that's what I like about remasters and remakes. I'm not as big on remasters as I am on remakes because I like when we're making a game from the ground up again, like the Final Fantasy VII remake that is coming eventually. I'm excited about that because we're remaking this from the ground up. We're abandoning the principles and the concepts of what that old game was, but we're keeping the story.
Which I'd much rather just have a remaster of Final Fantasy VII.
They have that.
I hate...
You can on any system, you can download Final Fantasy VII.
Not yet.
No, you can't.
It's not out yet. Not on the Xbox.
The remaster?
It's not out yet on the Xbox.
Absolutely. You can download it on Nintendo Switch, for God's sakes.
It's not out, unless it came out like last week. Because I've been playing Final Fantasy.
I have it on my PlayStation 4.
Well, yeah, but you have... Yeah, no, we're talking about what's coming to Switch and Xbox because all the PlayStation Final Fantasy games are out there. I just bought 9.
Yeah, 9 was the first one they released for Switch. Yeah.
So if 7's out, then 7's out. But I don't like... This is just me. I don't like real-time fighting.
Did you play Final Fantasy 15?
Yeah, it was okay. I just don't.
That's the engine that's being used to build 7.
I like turn-based fighting. For some reason, to me, like
it doesn't work in this day and age anymore, though.
That's what I like.
Right. The concept of the JRPG, it just doesn't keep up with modern gamers anymore. Like, truth be told, there's some games that still use it that are great.
Right, and that's what I want.
But most of those games are doing it, as part of a 2D isometric type of game, not necessarily a full 3D game anymore. It's hard because it's boring but everything else is so spectacular and gives you so much movement and customization. And then in battle, your guy just stands there while you input commands.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Like, I'm actually playing right now Mutant Year Zero.
I don't know what that is.
It's this weird role-playing game on Xbox where the combat actually turns from, like, you're walking, then when you break into combat, it goes into a Final Fantasy Tactics type combat.
Sure.
And I'm like, that's fine with me.
Yeah, those kinds of real-time strategy combats, those are great.
It's not even real-time. Like, it's still turn-based, but it's turn-based like tactics.
Right. When you allow me to have movement, you've taken it out of the JRPG and put it into a strategy.
Yeah, to me, when it comes to role-playing games, once you make it real-time battle, you've just made it a hack and slash or a beat-em-up game at that point. And I have beat-em-up games. I can go play Streets of Rage. I can go play...
No, I agree, but the story of Final Fantasy VII, being able to see that unfold with next-gen graphics...
Yeah, it's all exciting.
Using the Unreal Engine...
I just wanted to go where I hit circle to fight. That's all.
Circle wasn't the fight. Circle was the back.
Whatever.
The menu went back when you hit circle. You had to hit X.
Square, whatever.
The funny thing is, I was watching a video about controllers, and PlayStation never intended that to be the case. Most games that developed for PlayStation used X as the main button,
right?
But it was supposed to be the cancel button. Circle is the select button. X is the cancel.
That actually...
That's how they intended the controller to be used.
That makes a whole hell of a lot of sense.
It does. But developers never did that. Developers always used the bottom button as the enter button.
What I always liked about Sony is how they just gave the big middle finger to every other game console out there. Like, oh, your numbers are good. Here's our shapes.
It's true.
That's kind of
those shapes meant something, though, right? Those shapes, like I said, X and cross and circle.
Now that you say that, makes sense, but that's not
and cancel.
That's not how the game was. That's not how game developers did it. They messed it up.
Developers messed it up. They didn't understand. They didn't understand what the point was. But that's going to bring us to the end. Thanks to Rodger for sitting in and doing the news with me.
I hope I didn't mess it up too bad.
No, we're good. We got a little more opinionated than I like to be. I like to try to be more informative, but you infect me. That's you. I'm just bad. You just infected me with the idea.
The idea of conversation. I know it's bad.
No, it's okay. So guys, if you're digging what we're putting down here, do me a favor. Go on over to entertainthegeeky.com. There's some reviews and some various different things that we've done there. I've got a trailer breakdown that's going to be going up this week. So check it out. If social media is more your way to follow us, we're on all that stuff too. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/entertainmentgeeky, twitter.com/entertaingeeky, and we are on Instagram at entertaingeeky. So if you're digging what we're putting down, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. We appreciate it. We are going to talk to you guys next time. Until then, stay geeky.